Wow. Wow. That was powerful. Oh, my word. Well, that's the gospel right there. Right? Just remember that song. Wow. Thank you, choir. Thank you for leading us. Thank you. So good. So appreciate that and so grateful that we have something to sing about, right? Don't we ever? Goodness. Wow, that's amazing. Woo. Well, I'm ready. I'm ready to go home now. Got what I needed. Okay, we need to dismiss the kids. I see Nora up here. So kids, you are dismissed out to Children's Church. Glad that they're joining us up here. There's a bunch more downstairs already to get dropped off. Well, I need a Kleenex. Made me cry again. It's easy to make me cry, I guess. That's kind of gross. I'm sorry. I'll turn this way. Thanks, Dave. We want to see that. Okay, great. Okay, so if you haven't heard, okay, so pay attention to the announcements, by the way. You know, since COVID, the handout bulletins have kind of gone away, and so all of that stuff is written down on our weekly email. So if you have not signed up, I encourage you to sign up. You can do it right today back in the Welcome Center, and just get your name and number in there, and that way you'll be able to see what's happening. So if you're asking yourself, volunteer recognition banquet, am I a volunteer? So you need to self-identify, okay? So if you volunteer for anything around here, you're a volunteer and you're invited, okay? It's going to be a sit-down meal. We have Dr. Bob Griffin going to speak to us. It's going to be something that's going to be a good time to connect. The youth and the staff will be serving everyone who's attending that night. So I'm asking you to put it down on your calendar, sign up. We need to know approximately how many people are going to show up. So we'll have a good amount of food for you. It's going to be a great night. So please, if you think, well, you know, should I be a part of this? Yes, you should be a part of this. Now, if you're wondering, hey, where can I volunteer? Well, you're in luck because we have spots in which you can be involved. So back in the back again on the Welcome Center, there's a brochure there. If you open it up, there's tons of places in which you can volunteer and help. Okay, I believe that every person has a ministry. You can say amen, right? God has given you things. I want to encourage you to participate in what God is doing and ask him, God, how do you want me to get involved? And so if you need specifics, you can go back there. You can grab the sheet. You can fill things out. We'll make sure that you get connected to the right place. And now next Sunday, Margie told you that the Myanmar Church is having a 10-year anniversary. This is a big deal. Okay, they're inviting churches on Saturday all day. They're bringing in a special singer that's going to be ministering to folks. And so will you put it on your calendar? Because we want to support them. We want to celebrate with them. So next Sunday, we have this service. If you just want to skip this service and go to that service, it's okay. I won't tell the pastor. Okay? Go, be a part. You know, there'll be some translators there to help us. And afterwards, there's going to be a meal, and you're invited to that. So yeah, it's a good way to connect together, okay? Because we have two parts, okay, of this congregation. And know some names, know some faces, vice versa. Invest your energy and time to get to know other people. So next Sunday, 1 o'clock, the service starts. For that service, a big celebration, people all over the place. Please consider being a part of that. And lastly, we're going to do Vacation Bible School this summer. Thank you. It's going to be incredible, okay? We've done it over at our other facility for years and years called Mega Sports Camp. And this facility, this church, is an amazing place for this. Because there's a gym here. Do you know there's a gym here? Okay, that's here. There's fields right over there. There's plenty of room. I expect probably a couple hundred kids to be in this place for a week in summer. So this is June 20th to 24th. We're doing it in the evenings for those of you who work day jobs. And we need your help to love kids, to lead kids, to talk with kids, to be a part. So you'll see more and more things about that in the future, but put it down in your calendar. People are making plans for the summer. So June 20th, Monday, through the 24th. So that week, we be all hands on deck that we can be here and impact the community for Christ. Okay, so put that down on your calendar as well. Okay, message time. So here we go. Behind my garage at my house, we intentionally have a small yard, but we decided a couple years ago that we wanted to plant a garden. Any gardeners in the house? Anybody? Okay, there's a number of us, okay? Growing a garden can be fulfilling, and I had some pickles that I never wanted to be without, so I decided I'm going to grow some cucumbers, some tomatoes, some dill behind this little old tiny patch of land. So a friend of mine came over with the tiller, and we tilled this thing up, and we put all this other things into the ground and mixed that all up, and I was pretty excited. I didn't know how to do this, but I figured you put this in the ground, and it grows awesome, right? So we did that preparation. I got my little seeds. I put them in the ground. We built some trellises. Super excited. And we watered. And we waited. I went out there the next day. No change. Man, what's the deal? Well, surely tomorrow, right? So we watered a little more. I'm so excited. You go out the next day. Nothing, right? So, okay, you got to take a little time, right? And so go out there. You have to water a lot. You guys know this in the garden? Goodness, all right? And so I was watering. I was waiting. I was watering. I was waiting. And then all of a sudden things were coming out of the ground. Oh, I'm so excited. I had a great patch of weeds growing, right? Weeds grow. I didn't plant those weeds. Like, what is that about? It was naturally in the soil. So now I have weeds. So now I'm watering, I'm waiting, and I'm weeding, right? Eventually, what I intentionally put in the ground started to grow, and they grew up and had these vines. It was super cool. The tomato plants were growing, and it was exciting to see this. As I waited, and finally, the tomatoes were ripe. Finally, the cucumbers were ready to go, and when I took my first bite, I thought it was the best tomato known to mankind, right? Now, is it better organic? Yes. Is it better that you grow it from your backyard? Yes. But it probably tasted the best to me because I grew that thing, right? Took a long time and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but here it was, and it was delicious to me. And so in our lives, it's true as well that what we plant, right, we will reap. And sometimes it takes work. Well, every time it takes work, and it takes effort, and it takes focus to grow the good things out of our life. But also, in the garden patch of our soul, so to speak, there's other things that grow up, right? Weeds and thorns and thistles, and there's things that kind of come in to try to steal the good things that we want to grow in our life, that God wants to grow in our life. And so as we go up to Genesis chapter 21, we're going to look at the rest of the chapter. Now, in this chapter, I was thinking about why is there these three stories? So last week we talked about the birth of Isaac, right? The long-awaited, promised one that God told them 25 years earlier that the son would be given to them, and they had to wait, and they had to be reminded, and they had to wait, and they had to believe, and sometimes they believed well, and sometimes they made some mistakes, sowed some things into the ground. And so in this chapter, we'll see three things. We'll see that they were reaping what they were sowing. We see the birth of Isaac, a miracle, and they laughed and they rejoiced, and people wondered about the faithfulness of God, that this child born to this couple in their old age, where previously were not able to conceive, God did a miracle, and they rejoiced. But then coupled with that pronouncement, that great thing of joy, we see two other interactions that take place. So not only were they reaping God's goodness to them and their promises to them in the birth of Isaac, they also reaped some of the things they sowed in the past that weren't so good. And so there's a passage about Hagar and Ishmael, and that kind of comes up to the surface as well. And there's a passage about Abimelech, and if you remember this guy, they lied to this guy, right? And then all of a sudden he comes to the surface as well. So we'll see in this chapter some of the good things that come out of their lives, and also some of the missteps and misdeeds that they did. Has anyone here ever made a mistake before? Anyone make a mistake? Right. We've all made mistakes, like tying our shoes poorly, right? We've all made mistakes. We've all had missteps. We've all done miscues. At times we haven't believed, and we kind of took our life and things in our own hands, and it didn't turn well. So the question is, what are we to do about these mistakes, right? Still believing God, still reaping God's promises, but we're having some things come up out of our life that, oh my word, I wish I wouldn't have done that. And so we're going to see from this passage how this couple deals with these things as God kind of brings them up to the surface. And I hope that you'll be encouraged, that we'll be instructed, that perhaps you'll be convicted or saying, oh, you know what, I need to take this step in this situation of some weeds or some equip you to take some steps. Number one, this is our first main point. And by the way, there are notes available in the back if you're looking about these things. Often we talk about a lot of these notes, and you can have them as well. Okay, so number one, okay, thinking about mistakes or missteps from your past. Number one, we have to all protect what is most precious, okay? Looking at our life, looking at our future, looking at our heart. What is most precious to you? Now, my hope would be that the Word of God and the promises of God, the things that were sung for us about Christ and His forgiveness and the eternity and what He's done for us, the things of our faith, I hope are treasured in the storehouse of your heart. So I want you to think about what is most precious to you. And then we have a responsibility to guard those things, protect those things, to put them to the forefront, saying, this is who I am, this is how I truly want to live, this is what I am pursuing. And so we'll see that in this context with this couple as they're interacting. Okay? So they had their son Isaac, again, the child of the promise, and he had grown. And let's pick up this story in verse 8 of chapter 21 of Genesis. The child grew and was weaned, so probably around 3 years old or so. And on the day Isaac was weaned, Abraham held a great feast. This was a massive transition, a time of celebration from an infant to a child, and they celebrated. But Sarah, which was Abraham's wife, saw the son whom Hagar, the Egyptian, had bore to Abraham, was mocking, okay? By the way, that whole connection to Hagar and Ishmael being the fruit of that was both Sarah's and Abraham's idea. They thought that they would be able to help God in fulfilling His promises. Have you ever made that mistake before, right? Made it. I don't want to wait that long. I don't know how He's going to do this stuff. I better help God, right? God doesn't need your help. He needs your obedience, right? That's what He needs from us. And so now that these seeds that they planted were still there, growing up in their lives, and there was an interaction here, and there was a problem. Sarah, on this day in which should have been great celebration, they have this young, vulnerable, perhaps 3-year-old young boy, and all the family was gathered, the community was gathered. There was a big feast, and there was celebration to honor the promise of God in their life. And while everyone was celebrating, one person was not, right? His name was Ishmael. More than likely, he's around 13 or 14 years old, right? The time in our life where we're the wisest, right? 13 and 14. We're the kindest, right? We have it all together. Junior high, right? We love junior high, okay? He was growing into his body. He probably had kind of an adult body. Being 13, 14 could be a little dangerous. Maybe lots of testosterone flowing through his veins. And he was used to being kind of the center of attention. And now here is this child, the golden child, the promised child. And as everyone was celebrating, he was mocking it. Now, we don't have record of what he said, right? Could have been vicious. It could have been malicious. It could have been, I don't know, perhaps violent. I'm not sure. But mocking, laughing, making fun of, just like a fly in your chocolate cake, right? Kind of ruining it. Or you pick it out and eat the whole thing anyways. But it was a moment, right? Ishmael was there because of their lack of obedience and patience and trust in God. You may have some of those things in your life, things from your past that are currently in your present, and it's continuing to be a source of pain. Verse 10. So Sarah said to Abraham, listen, we have to do something about this. And she was pretty salty, okay? Hagar and Sarah have had words in the past. There were some problems there, right? God still had plans for this lady and this son. Sarah said to Abraham, get rid of this slave woman, this servant woman, this woman that we purchased to help us while we were in Egypt. Get rid of her and her son. For the woman's son didn't even name her, you notice this? Didn't even name him. There was lots of animosity here. For the woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac. Now this seems pretty harsh, right? Pretty drastic, pretty cut and dried. And Abraham struggled with this, and he knew that this had this tension for a while, based upon both of their agreement to disobey God and try to make things happen on their own. And here it was, this fruit of this decision was there, mocking them. And something needed to be done. This wild donkey of a man, which this young boy was prophesied to be in Genesis chapter 16, verse 12, there was a problem. Verse 11 of chapter 21 of Genesis. So the matter distressed Abraham greatly. He wasn't like, yeah, that's a good idea, let's get rid of them. They're a pain in my side as well. There was some genuine distress, some grief, some inner turmoil of him. It distressed Abraham greatly because it concerned his son, Ishmael, who he saw grow, who had been a part of his life for the last 14 years. So Abraham went to God, which was a good idea. Well done, Abraham. And when you are in distress, it's always wise to go to God and ask for his opinion. We can say amen to that. God, what are you saying? What are you wanting? How do I deal with this? How do we move forward? There's conflict and strife. Have you ever had conflict and strife in your family? We all have. Right? What to do? And sometimes this strife and conflict comes up because of some of our stupid things we've done in the past. But one way or the other, here it is. And there was conflict and distress. So Abraham went to God, verse 12, but God said to him, do not be so distressed. You have some distress, that's not a word. Conflict, turmoil, it's better. Don't be so distressed about the boy and your slave woman. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. This is whom Isaac, the blessing, will come through. Verse 13. I will make the son of the slave into a nation also, because he is your offspring. Conflict from past missteps, misbehavior, coming to the surface. And it'll come to the surface at times in our own life. And so after seeking God, God told him, listen, I know you're distressed, but do what is right. Protect what is most precious, and that is my word to you and my calling to you. God's gifting and his calling are irrevocable. God does not come back on his word. And do not let the mistakes of the past jeopardize God's future for you. Thank you. Because we all have them. We're all disqualified for ministry if it was based upon our righteousness, right? We collectively get an F for righteousness. Well, I'm pretty good. You're not Jesus good, right? We've all fallen. The devil will remind you about that. To say you're not worthy. In one sense, you aren't. But guess what? You know someone who is, right? And he makes us new. He makes us worthy. He opens the door. He is the promise. He is the one that calls us forward. He is the one that we are serving and glorifying anyway. Focus in on what is true about Christ. Focus in on what he's called you to do. Protect the direction that God has asked you to walk in. Protect that. And there'll be people that tell you, well, you are not qualified to do this and that. And you can say, I'm not. But God qualifies the called. Right? He's changed me, and we're still working in this thing. And so Abraham and this principle talked to God, and he says, hey, let it go, cut it off, right? I'll take care of him. I will take care of her. So Abraham did not make the same mistake of being impatient and disobedient to God. He got up the next day, and that was painful that departure was, and it was probably painful. I don't know how you have that conversation with Hagar and Ishmael. He did for them what he could, gave them some food, gave them some water, trusted God, and released them to their future. How many things from your past are you hanging on to? How many mistakes from your past are you hanging on to because you feel responsible for them? Ultimately, you have to trust God and his word, focus in on what's most important, and protect what is most precious in your context. Now, I'm not asking you and telling you to be irresponsible. There are some things in our past that we have to leave in our past. It's hard to drive forward when you're looking in the rearview mirror, right? You do that all the time, okay? You'll be looking back and you'll probably end up in a ditch in your present. God, I commit this situation to you. I will look to rectify it, make it right. But as for me and my house, we are serving the Lord. Okay? understand this push going forward. So you have to ask yourself, if you're thinking of something from your past and like, oh, my word, that was a mistake. Hang on to God's promise and protect what is most precious and move and trust God will do his work. And God indeed, as you continue to read Genesis chapter 21, 14 and following about this, God did meet her. God did meet this young man. God kept his promises to them, opened their eyes, provided for them. And God still worked in them, but Abraham and his house needed to move forward. So I am asking you to have wisdom about something that might be stuck in the back of your mind or in the front of your vision. God, what would you have me do for this? How is this affecting what you've called me to do? And God, what is right and honorable to you? What is right and honorable to those that I'm connected with and those that I love? Think about this. And again, the principle: protect what is most precious to you. And let it be God and his word and his calling and his promises. And there are times in which we have to separate ourselves from people and places and things in our past. I'm going to say amen. Right? If you are running around and you're a part of groups and situations and relationships that were not healthy for you, nor were they honoring to God, make a change. Right? Well, that will hurt them when I say, hey, I can't hang out with you in that way anymore. It's okay, because what you're hanging on to is far greater than what you're letting go of. All right? You hear me? And sometimes people fail to make this disconnection from things in their past because they're trying to redeem this while trying to hang on to God's promise. In order to hang on to something new, you have to let go of the past because you can't hold it all, friend. Right? Trust God and let go. And some of us in this room may need to let go of some things, some past mistakes, some things that you've identified yourself with. This is how I am. This is how it is. You can make a change because the Holy Spirit is the greatest change agent known to humanity. Ask God for help. Even breaking off things that at one point you loved dearly. It's not pushing you and helping you forward in your life of faith. Just like weeds in the gardens, it will choke off what has produced the good seed of God in your life. If I didn't kill those weeds, my plants would not have done as well, because it was drawn away from the things that were meant for the nutrition and the life that was meant for the good things. So think about this. So there was a separation of this. Okay, we don't hear from Hagar anymore. We don't see Ishmael per se in his story. We'll see his life later on as you read the Old Testament. There was a separation, making things right so they can move forward. Second point, pay the price to redeem your reputation. Right? There is a price to pay. In this instant with this couple, they had a problem with lying, right? You remember this, right? They lied in Egypt, right? Which ended up them getting this gal Hagar, which ended up that they got tripped up, okay? Lying because of fear and not trusting God. And then they went back to that familiar sin pattern. Well, I don't have any familiar sin patterns. You're lying to yourself right now, right? Ways that we just deal with life when there's stress, right? When we're having a difficult time, that we want to go back to that thing, whatever that thing is. They went back to it as well, stressed, they were afraid. They knew God was going to do the work, but we talked about this a few weeks ago, and they lied again and created an issue with this king called Abimelech. So God in his goodness now is allowing them to reap. They have Isaac. They have to deal with this Ishmael issue, and now there is an opportunity for them to redeem their reputation, but there is a price to be paid. Let's continue to read as we read about this guy Abimelech coming back. Verse 22. Now at that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, this was the general of Abimelech, they came to Abraham and said, God is with you in everything you do. God hadn't forsaken Abraham and Sarah because of their past mistakes, and God has not forsaken you, about your past mistakes. And someone needs to hear that today. Didn't forsake them. God was still with them, and these two recognized it, and other people will recognize that in you as well. Verse 23. Now Abimelech said to Abraham, now swear to me here before God that you will not deal falsely with me or my children or my descendants. Show to me and the country where you now reside as a foreigner. He was a refugee, by the way. The same kindness I have shown to you. Abraham said, I swear it. Now, if you know the story, and I've talked about it, right? Abraham lied to him. And so now Abimelech took his army commander with him as an accountability person to witness this. You see what's happening here, right? Hey, I want to bring someone reputable, someone that's respected. I'm bringing him along so that we, Abraham, you and I can have our conversation. And Abraham, don't lie to me anymore, right? That's basically what he's saying, right? You lied to me. You've dealt falsely with me. And Abimelech paid the price. You can turn back a page and you can read that story if you weren't here, okay? He paid a price for their lies. He says, now, Abraham, don't lie to me anymore, right? It's like if you lie to your boss and your boss gives you another opportunity. You sit down and that person talks to you and say, hey, listen, I want to get this straight right now. Stop lying to me, right? And swear that you won't do this. Make a promise. Make a pinky promise, Do whatever. Swear to me. And Abimelech said, by God, right? He knew that Abraham served God. Swear to God that you won't. Swear to me before God. Swear to me before God that you will stop lying to me. Now, Abraham had to eat crow, so to speak, right? His word and his reputation had been diminished by his past behavior. And by the way, it happens today as well, right? Why are they treating me this way? Because you tell them you're going to be at work and you don't show up on time. What do you expect? Well, I'm favored by God. Sure you are, but get to work on time, right? Why is this happening? Maybe you're dumb, right? That's not very nice. Well, come on. So Abraham had to own up to it. He didn't say, why are you treating me like that? Because you know I'm God's favored, right? How dare you? The blessing is coming from me. Bow, right? Some Christians, by the way, think that way. And it stinks. Thank you. God, help us to be humble. And Abraham had to own up to it. You made mistakes in your past, own up to it. Right? Don't blame everybody else. Right? He could have. Well, I didn't trust you and blah, blah, blah. Just say, I was wrong. Right? That's beautiful, by the way. So he says he didn't argue with them. You saw that Abimelech brought his army commander, Phicol. He says, I swear it. Sometimes we have to, and I'm going to say sometimes, every time, if you're looking to redeem your reputation, you have to be honest, you have to own it, and you have to pay the price for it. And just do it because your reputation matters. But more importantly, God's reputation matters. I hope the people that you work with know that you're a Christian. And if they don't, it's your fault. Oh, that's rude. That's honest. Don't be obnoxious about it. Pray, God, give me an opportunity today to honor you. Guess what? God will answer that prayer. The prayer God answers. They know you represent, and we don't always get it right. I don't always get it right. Be honest, I'm sorry. You know what? I didn't follow through. That doesn't reflect well on me. It doesn't reflect well on God. Abraham had to make things right. Verse 25. So once he swore, I won't lie anymore. I won't deal with you falsely anymore. He squared up. And then he had opportunity to say, well, there's something I need to talk to you about as well. Verse 25. Then Abraham complained, talked to Abimelech about a well of water. And that was very important in the context of living in a desert, right? Like, hey, you never paid me, right? I never got my paycheck in our contemporary day. Hey, this is important for me to continue to live. And so he had an issue as well. He says, hey, let me tell you about this well of water that your servants, Abimelech, they took from me. But Abimelech said, I don't know who has done this. I didn't know about this. You did not tell me. I've heard about it only today. Saying, I wasn't covering this up. I didn't know about this. Verse 27. So Abraham brought sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech. Right? And if you look when Abraham lied to Abimelech about his wife, Abimelech had to make it right. And he gave him money, and he gave him things that said you're innocent. And now Abraham had to do the same. He had to say, I did this, and this is proving I had to buy back, in essence, what he did. And, by the way, they made a covenant there, and in making a covenant, and in this day, as we saw previously, they needed these animals. Remember, they cut them in half, spread them apart, walked through them in the mess of the blood and the disgustingness, making a covenant. This needed to take place, and Abraham took responsibility for making this right by giving of his own life. And sometimes when we need and desire to make things right with other people, it will cost you. When I was in high school, I worked lots of jobs. We were pretty poor, right? One job that I worked at Dave's Family Foods, and I did not own it, right? I was a 16-year-old, 15-year-old. Well, sometimes during lunch, I didn't bring a lunch. Either I didn't have money or I just forgot. So lunchtime, when no one was looking, this is a true confession right here. You guys are like, oh, yeah, okay. I'd go in and grab a Tombstone pizza, right? It's going to go bad anyway. I'll grab it from the front and I'll cook it up. And I did. I did it repeatedly, right? When I became a Christian, really gave my heart to Christ when I was a senior in high school, I remembered this. The Lord had forgiven me, made me new. I was going after Christ, but I had an issue I needed to take care of. So Dave and I had a conversation. I told him what was up. I said, you got to take this out of my paycheck. Dave respected me for that. He took some money out, but he didn't take it all out. Did it cost me? It did. but it was better for me to be right in front of God and be right with other people, so I paid the price. Sometime in your life, you have to pay the price as well. Welcome to church. Sometimes we have to do that. Verse 27, so Abraham brought sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech. And the two men made a treaty. Abraham also set apart 7 ewe lambs from his flock. This was important. This was the most valuable possessions that he had, because these young lambs were very valuable, female young lambs that could reproduce. So Abraham took some of the things that were valuable to him and set them aside and gave them to Abimelech. In verse 29, Abimelech asked Abraham, what is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs that have set apart by themselves? He replied, those guys will take care of that, and I'll deal with that. It's good to have an open door policy, people. It's good to be wise as well. I can't compete with that, so I'm just going to stop. We're all thinking about it. I'll take care of it. That's why we have ushers. Abraham says, verse 30, and he replied, accept these 7 lambs from my hand as a witness that I have dug this well. Okay, here is a witness making up for, right? So the place was called Beersheba. And by the way, that name means the well of the 7 lambs. Every time that they went to that well, there was a reminder of telling the truth, that this is his, being honest, and it cost him something. So what does that tell us? At times, we need to pay the price to redeem our reputation, okay? And be okay with that. Take a back seat. Do the hard job. You have a time lying to your spouse, be honest. Have your phone open. Have your computer open. Have everything open. You have to sometimes pay prices that way. It's okay, right? Do what you need to do to redeem your reputation. Abraham had to do that as well. Final point from our passage for today. Lastly, plant yourself in the promises. And this, by the way, is a very beautiful passage. So now we've been walking with Abraham 25 years, roaming around, camping in various places, moving here, moving there, trusting God, learning, growing, making mistakes, moving forward. And then this is recorded, and I don't want us to miss this. Verse 32. After the treaty had been made at Beersheba, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, returned to the land of the Philistines. Verse 33. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba. And there he called on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for a long time. Abraham had been enjoying the fruits of other people's labors, and he decided, I'm going to plant a tree. It wasn't a mushroom. It wasn't just a plant, a tree. He says, I am going to plant myself here for a long time. Don't miss that. Trees take a while to be valuable to us. Abraham says, I am staying put in God's promises. I'm not veering or I'm not running. I am planting myself here. Again, as for me and my house, we are serving the Lord. It is a beautiful thing what took place here. He took a little seed, right? And I have a fake acorn seed, right? And by the way, you're going to see these on their way out. I bought a couple hundred of these for you, right? And I want you to take one if you want. And I want you to put this somewhere in your office or your house or your car or whatever to remind yourself to stay planted in the Word and the promise and the pathway of God. I am putting my roots down in God's goodness to me. I want you to do this. This will be in my office. And I'll think of this from years to come, saying, David, remain firm in the Word of God and His promises, and allow those things to grow. I am staying here in this place that help my roots to go deep in your promises, next to the deep flowing of your Word, like this well at Beersheba. And so this was a turning point where he said, I'm planting a tree and I'm going to stay right here. Planting myself in the church, planting myself in the Word, planting myself with God's promises. This is where I'm going to stay. You do that, you won't oscillate from following God to not following God, to following God to not following God. We're saying, I'm going to stay right here. God, help me in this. Called on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And we're going to sing that song at the end here. God, you are faithful forever, so I will forever be faithful to you. Let the testimony about our life be as Psalm 1 portrays to us. Blessed is the man, blessed is the woman who walks not in the counsel of the wicked. You see this cutting away, right? Nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers or mockers. You're seeing these things here. But he or she delights themselves in the law of the Lord. And on his word, we meditate, think about, plant ourselves in it both night and day. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water. Yields its fruit in season, its leaf does not wither. All that he or she does prospers. Let that be your testimony. I'm planting myself in the promises of God. So on your way out, grab one of these. So in summation, and we're going to sing if the musicians could come up. We again reap what we sow, both the good and the bad. Okay? There are good things in your life that continue to come up because of God's goodness to you. Protect them. Walk in them. Count them as precious. Now, the other things, we need to deal with the weeds, just like me in that garden of mine, right? Pulling them up, being careful of it. Making sure that what is precious grows and what else is there would be uprooted. And some of us may need to uproot some things. We may need some help from friends or from the Lord, of course. Enjoy the fruit of what God's work in your heart. Actively attend to it. Benefit from the results. And we'll see that with Isaac. We'll see an incredible passage next week, by the way. Go ahead and read ahead. And choose to continue to call on the name of the Lord. So let's pray. God, we thank you for your promises to us, God. We thank you for the time of worship that we have. The conversations in the hallways and across these pews and in this place. God, grateful that we have so much to sing about, in particular what you did for us by sacrificing your Son for us. God, as we talked about this morning, Lord, I ask that what is of you today would be go deep into our heart, into our mind. That we would honor you and your promises. That we'd reap those things that have been growing because of your goodness to us. God, help us to deal with past mistakes. Particular for us, there's something just nagging. God, I ask that we'll do business with those things. And God, I ask that every person listening today will choose to cast their lot with you, will choose to plant ourselves in your word, with your people, and follow after you. And may, God, we reap the benefits of your